so we're doing this question. अब start कर लेते हैं. Ethanoic acid and butane 2-ol. So ethanoic acid is obviously eth is 2 carbon atoms, so that's 1 and 2, and it's got a double bond O and an OH. ठीक है, बाकी H पूरे कर लो. This one would have 3 hydrogens. और फिर साथ क्या है, butane 2-ol. Like if you look at bute means there are 4 carbon atoms. So you've got a molecule that has 4 carbon atoms. Or butane 2-ol का क्या मतलब है? All is an alcohol. 2 means the alcohol is on the second one. So on the second one, you have an OH group. Okay, that is something that is existing on the second carbon atom. This one will have 3 hydrogens. This one will have 2 hydrogens. This one over here will have just 1 hydrogen. And this one will have 3 hydrogens as well. तो ये आपके पास molecule आ गया और इन दोनों का ester बनाना है. Now the first thing I told you about when you're making esters is कि इनके जरा functional groups आमने सामने हो. ठीक है, so I'm going to sort of rotate this a bit, and the functional groups must be facing each other. तो एक molecule को थोड़ा सा rotate करके दूसरे के साथ fit करो, and the carboxylic acid would lose its OH and the alcohol would lose its H. तो ये दोनों बीच में से निकल जाएंगे. इसको copy paste करके नीचे कर लेते हैं. तो so this one and an arrow. अच्छा, ये H और OH बीच में से गायब हो गया और ये दोनों these two will connect together. ठीक है, so this one, तो सो rotate कर लो. This one will connect with this oxygen over here, and that's your ester link. Because you've got a carbon which is connected double bond O next to an oxygen. So that is what an ester is. It's a C double bond O right next to a single O. ठीक है, Saneem, is this clear? Or the H and OH, they ended up forming H2O molecules, so condensation reaction happened. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
और मेथड वो खैर दूसरा तो किया हुआ है. अच्छा, मूविंग ऑन, बाकी पास पेपर्स में करेंगे. अच्छा, मूविंग ऑन, लेट्स नाउ स्टार्ट डिस्कसिंग. सो ये एक अल्कोहल का ना एक और रिएक्शन था which I'm not sure if you've studied. नहीं किया शायद, वो मैं जल्दी से कर देता हूँ. This one बल्कि किया होगा. ठीक है, before esters, just let me check. Reflux, oxidation of alcohols नहीं किया हुआ है, तो आगे मूव करते हैं. So let's move to the next subtopic, which is carboxylic acids. So first thing, what's a carboxylic acid? Anything that has this specific functional group. It's got a C double bond O next to an OH. And this is the rest of the molecule, which I'm going to call R. So that's what a carboxylic acid looks like. Iski jo condensed form hai, that would look like this. R, this C is with one O, and then you have another OH. So it's known as COO. Actually, it's known as COOH. And sometimes it's even condensed further. Okay, what you write is R CO2H. Okay, so all of these are basically the carboxylic acid functional group. Har carboxylic acid mein, you are going to have this thing over here, C double bond O and OH. अच्छा, इसका था कि the general formula for carboxylic acid is CN H2N plus 1 COOH, where N is the number of carbon atoms, but one less than that. Okay? So if I want to make propanoic acid would be 3 carbon atoms, and then you're going to have a double bond O, NOH, that is what makes a carboxylic acid. This one will have 2 H's. This one will have 3 H's. So you can use the general formula where N is the number of carbon atoms minus 1. ठीक है, तो N की value 2 लेनी है. So if I use CnH2n plus 1, COH, तो N की value क्या लेनी है? It's going to be taken as 2. So N is going to be 2. And H is going to be 5, and then you're going to have COOH. तो यहाँ पे देख भी लो, it's C2H5 top पे, and then COOH. So remember, carboxylic acid का जो general formula होता है, N की value is going to be taken as 1 less than the number of carbon atoms. तो एक number कम लेना है उसका. So that is carboxylic acid. ये हम कर भी चुके हैं. We've learned naming them. This is propanoic acid. If you have 3 carbon atoms, that is going to be propanoic acid. Achha, isme position is not an issue. You don't have to number it because the carboxylic acid group, I mean this group over here, it's always present at the end or the first one. When the first or end ek hi cheez hai. So always present at the end. Achha, clear is formula, general formula, etc. Saneem, Hamza, is this clear? Nawal, Zainab, is this clear? Yes or no? Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Achha, ab hai ke properties. So the properties are very similar to alcohols. And when we talk about properties, we basically talk about the physical properties. So they are similar to alcohols. Similar to alcohols, they've got high melting and boiling points. And they tend to be very soluble in. They tend to be very soluble in water as well. So these are the 2 main properties. And the other chemical property that they have is that carboxylic acids are considered to be weak. So they're considered to be weak acids. Okay, so they're considered to be weak acids. So the first thing is, what is an acid? In case other reactions are as acids. So I'll just give you a brief background. Okay, the definition of an acid is that it's a proton donor. And a proton is basically an H+1 ion. That's known as a proton. So an acid is a proton donor. Any acid is basically a proton donor. So weak का क्या मतलब है? Weak का मतलब है, यानी it's a molecule that जो दूसरों को ना H+1 ion देता है. So there's this molecule. Anything that's giving H+1 ions to other things, anything that gives off H+1 ions, that is an acid. तो weak acid की definition है कि वो ये सब करेगा लेकिन कम करेगा. It's going to partially ionize, partially or weakly ionize, and it produces fewer H+1 ions. So that is what a weak acid is. और इसके पीछे पूरी वो theory acid basis की के there's a molecule that gives off H+1 ions, and there's another molecule which is a base that accepts H+1 ions. ठीक है, so you have acids and you have bases. Or acids और bases अगर मैं इसको वैसे complete थोड़ी सी revision कर लें about the concept. So acids are proton donors. और आपकी जो bases है vice versa, they are proton अच्छा they are proton acceptors. अब और उसमें क्या होता है कि base is a molecule that accepts मतलब अपनी surrounding से ना it's going to accept H plus ions or protons. ठीक है वो जगह जगह जाके it's going to grab those H plus ions. So that's what a base is. और उसके पीछे पूरी जो the whole acid base concept revolves around water because everything on planet Earth is happening in water, and water has two ions. Water splits up into two ions, produces two ions. So whenever you have an aqueous solution, there are going to be two ions in the water. अगर आप acid डालते हो, normally water का जो H plus 1 and OH ions है, they are in equal concentration, which means कि जितने आपके पास OH ions है, उतने exactly H plus 1 है. That's called pH 7. That is called neutral pH. Acid अगर डालोगे तो acid is a molecule that starts producing H plus 1 ions, and when it starts to produce H plus 1 ions, so the quantity of H plus 1 goes up and the quantity of OH ions vice versa goes down. So that is known as a solution being acidic. अगर base होगी तो what will base do? It will decrease the concentration of H plus 1. The concentration of OH ions would vice versa go up. So that was the whole concept about pH, about acids and bases. That acids are molecules that produce H plus 1 ions and bases accept them. Why is H plus 1 important? क्योंकि पानी के अंदर दो ions होते हैं. Water is everywhere. In every reaction, the main medium is water. So water always has a specific pH. And what pH represents is the balance between the H plus 1 and OH ions. क्योंकि any pure water will have both ions. Acid H plus 1 ज़्यादा कर देगा और base H plus 1 vice versa कम कर देगा. Now in this particular case, carboxylic acids are weak acids. So carboxylic acids are going to behave like this particle over here. So if you look at a carboxylic acid molecule, it's always going to produce H plus 1 ions, but not a lot of them. कि अगर मेरे पास ethanoic acid है, तो ethanoic acid would go on to lose it's going to go on to lose or produce H plus 1 ions. ठीक है वो जो end वाला H है ना वो टूट के अलग हो जाता है. ठीक है, like if I draw the whole structure, so remember this when you have a carboxylic acid, तो ये वाला जो H है it breaks down, and what you get is C double bond O minus 1, and the H plus 1 it simply breaks off. ठीक है, this happens to any carboxylic acid, whether it's butanoic acid, and the sign between them is always a reversible reaction because the reaction does not happen completely. There's a lot of backward reaction happening, so that means it doesn't get fully ionized. Like you don't have arrow in one direction, it doesn't get fully ionized. At the end of the day, it's an equilibrium reaction. Okay, थोड़े बहुत ethanoate ions would break down, but most of them would just remain as ethanoic acid. So that is how a weak acid ionizes. ठीक है, तो ये याद रखना कि these are acids, and it's always the carboxylic acid H that breaks off, ionizes. ये सारा क्लियर है कि वीक एसिड वाली बात? Yes or no? Is this clear? Zara, is this clear? Saneem, Nawal, Minahil, is this clear?
Yes,
जी
sir.
सर.
So I'll just do one more example. Like if I have another random carboxylic acid, so there's C double bond O and OH, and there's carbon here with 3 H's, 1 H with this one, and there would be 3 H's with this one. तो इसको भी आयराइज कर लेते हैं. Reversible. And C over here. 3 H's, 1 H. अच्छा तो इसका double bond O और OH वाला जो H है ना, this becomes O minus 1 and the H plus 1 breaks off. So that is how this particle is producing H plus 1 ions, but it's not going to produce a lot of H plus 1 ions. Weak acids का pH जो होता है ना, वो usually it's around 5 to 7. So pH is around 5 to 7. So that's what a weak acid is. Now, since it is an acid undergoes all sorts of reactions. So acids, they tend to undergo all sorts of reactions. The first one, so we're going to do it one by one. The first one is a metal plus acid produces salt plus H2. And it depends on the reactivity of the metal. As a metal plus acid produces salt plus H2. That's the first one. A metal के आपके पास, you have, let's say magnesium. I'll pick any random acid. Let's pick nitric acid. What will happen? The acid will get neutralized. उसके जो H है ना, they're going to get replaced by Mg, the metal. MgNO3 twice plus H2 gas. And you can balance this. So remember, every time, how is the salt produced when you have a metal plus acid reaction? The metal goes and displaces the H. जो मर्जी reaction है, Na plus HCl क्या होगा? It's going to, the metal would go and displace the H. So it's kind of a displacement reaction where hydrogen is getting displaced. So this particular reaction is a displacement, and they often refer to as a redox reaction because oxidation and reduction are happening. Substances, like if you focus on Mg over here, Mg had no electrons and now it's +2, so that means it's got 3 electrons. I say pehla question, pehla metal plus acid equation, is this clear? This हमने अभी carboxylic acid नहीं किया, but I'm just going to do that. Minahil clear है? Hamza? Saneem, is this clear?
जी सर.
अच्छा मैं carboxylic acid को बीच में ले आता हूँ. Remember, it's always the H in the acid that gets displaced by the metal. Okay? So you've got all sorts of carboxylic acids, and we did discuss this. Okay, it's always going to be the H in the carboxylic acid, specifically this one, not anyone else. So if I do the same reaction of, let's say, Na with some carboxylic acid, and this time I'm picking Propanoic acid. So what will happen? What will happen is the Na is going to come in and it's going to displace the H. Uski jagah pe khud aa jayega. So what you're going to get is CH3. Sorry, C3H7. और वो H की जगह ना Na आ जाएगा. Plus, there is going to be plus there's going to be H2 gas. So that's how salts are formed. Agar ethanoic acid is bani, the name of this salt is going to be, it's got sodium and ethanoate. Okay, so ethanoic acid, I mean, these salts will be called ethanoate. Okay, that's how this equation would work. So metal plus acid would produce salt plus H2. एक और कर लेते हैं, I've got aluminium plus methanoic acid कर लेते हैं, HC. So what's going to happen? The H in the acid is going to get displaced by Al. So it's going to become HCO minus 1 and Al3 plus. You put a 3 over here, crisscross, do crisscross. Plus H2 gas is going to be, it's going to be produced. So हर दफा याद रखना कि whenever you have a metal plus acid reaction, what you get is a salt plus H2 gas. The metal always goes and knocks out the H, which results in the formation of H2 gas. Na goes and knocks out the H, forms NaCl, and the H2 gas gets knocked out. Na goes and it sees a carboxylic acid, knocks out this specific H. It's going to be this specific H. You just sedal bond ke saath jo OH hai, it's always going to be this specific H. Uski jagah pe khud aa jayega. Al is going to find that H and displace it. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, second reaction पे आ जाते हैं. The second reaction is a metal oxide or metal hydroxide. And we can throw in NH4OH. I mean, basically, it's any oxide or hydroxide. That's considered a base. Like if I go back, we were studying acid and bases. So which compounds are basic? The ones that can gain H plus 1 ion. So you had O minus 2, you had OH minus 1, and you had CO3 minus 2. So all three can actually gain H plus 1 ions. ये भी gain कर लेगा. So they're all acceptors. Do H plus 1. This would be H2O, and this one would also react with H plus 1 ions, and it is going to produce CO2 and H2O. Sara, we just went through all of that we've already studied. So just remember that you have acid reactions and you've got bases reactions. These are our bases. ये सारी जो यहाँ पे लिखी है. अच्छा metal oxide and it would produce किस साथ react कर रही है? अच्छा it's reacting with an acid. And it will produce salt plus H2O. The reaction is kind of the same. It's the same thing, metal oxide or hydroxide. So I'm going to pick magnesium hydroxide. And I'm going to pick H2SO4. The salt usi तरह बनेगी. The H gets replaced by Mg, so it's going to be MgSO4. Meanwhile, Mg is +2 and SO4 is -2. So forget the H. So it's going to be MgSO4. Plus water. So ये reaction आपका, so I'll just go through this once more. कि if we go back and have a look, acids react with bases. You've got oxides, hydroxides, and carbonates. These are basic. So when you have a metal oxide with a hydroxide, and it's reacting with an acid, salt and water would be produced. The salt is going to be produced in exactly the same way. कि आप acid का H हटा दो और उसकी जगह metal को बीच में fit कर दो. So you get MgSO4 plus H2O. So for carboxylic acid, just 1 second. So for carboxylic acid, we'll do pretty much the same. एक और reaction कर लेते हैं. I've got NaOH reacting with HCl. How is this salt produced? Get rid of the H and put Na in its place. So what you're going to get is NaCl plus H2O. So ये सारे reactions, and we're going to apply the same reactions to carboxylic acid. So I'm going to do NaOH with some carboxylic acid, let's say butanoic acid, which is C3H7 COOH. इसका H हटाना है और उसकी जगह replace कर देना है Na. So it's going to be CH3 plus water is going to be produced. तो हर दफा remember it's this very specific H जो हम बार-बार तोड़ रहे थे, that is the one that breaks. उसकी जगह the metal would come in. So that's a metal oxide or metal hydroxide reaction with an acid. एक और कर लेते हैं. If I have barium hydroxide, B is +2, OH is -1, so it's going to be BOH2. And I've got methanoic acid, which is HC. तो बस H हटाओ उसकी जगह आप barium को ले आओ. It's going to become HCO -1 और उसकी जगह barium आ गया. तो वो +2 है, so this entire thing would turn or would be twice as much. Plus water is going to be produced. अच्छा ये दोनों reactions clear है? Is this clear? Minail clear है? Saneem, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Zainab, Nawal, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So remember, you need some background of acids and bases in this for this particular case. So we've just done two reactions. Both reactions are kind of very similar. A metal reacting with an acid ka H was using a metal, bring the metal in, that gives you your salt. So if you have a carboxylic acid, it's always the COH, the OHH that is going to be displaced by the metal, and you'll get this salt. And you're going to call it since it's made from ethanoic acid, इसको बोल के सही कर लो, Gates it's made from ethanoic acid, so the salt name would be ethanoate. This one is made from methanoic acid. So the salt name would be called aluminium methanoate. अच्छा, we come basis के लिए, you've got a hydroxide, just get rid of the H and put Mg in its place. You'll get the salt plus water. Hydroxide में water बनता है साथ. NaOH, Na will get replace the H. You'll get the salt and water is going to be produced. So for carboxylic acid, it's kind of the same thing. So I'm going to give you a couple of equations. या बल्कि तीसरा रिएक्शन कर लेते हैं जल्दी से, which is also the same, almost the same. It's a carbonate reacting with an acid. That's a carbonate plus acid, and it produces salt plus H2O plus CO2 as well. So this reaction, so any carbonate would do, like if I have sodium carbonate, carbonate is CO3 minus 2, so it's a Na plus 1 CO3 minus 2. So the formula is going to be Na2CO3 plus, let's say, HCl. Same thing, get rid of the H, put the metal in its place. So it's going to become NaCl, where Na is plus 1 and Cl is minus 1. Plus there's going to be water produced, plus there's going to be carbon dioxide that's also going to be formed. So it's the same exact reaction as above, except कि बीच में carbon dioxide extra आ गई है. You got potassium carbonate, CO3 is minus 2, बल्कि तो वही हो जाएगा. Let's say magnesium carbonate, Mg is plus 2, CO3 is minus 2. I'm going to react it with nitric acid, get rid of the H, or uski jagah bring in the Mg and the NO3. That's a plus water plus carbon dioxide. So carboxylic acid would have similar reaction. Like if I react a carboxylic acid with magnesium carbonate, let's say propanoic acid, जिसका जो N वाला H है, that gets replaced by Mg. So it would be CH3CH2, COO minus 1, and the H gets replaced by Mg, which is 2 plus, तो उसको फिर सारे को double करना पड़ेगा. Plus there is going to be H2O and CO2 that are going to be produced as well. So ये तीसरा reaction भी same है. It's all acid-based reactions are very similar. The only thing is that side पे जो product होता है, that sometimes that usually changes. So we did 3 reactions of acids and bases, specifically applying it to carboxylic acid. Metal plus acid produces salt plus H2. The H gets knocked out and the metal takes its place. Metal oxides or hydroxides, they form salt and water. Same thing, Mg comes in, knocks out H, and you get MgSO4. Na comes in, knocks out the H, and you get NaCl. और तीसरा reaction जो था वो था कि carbonate reacting with acid produces salt, water, and carbon dioxide. So if you have MgCO3, I mean, you do the same thing. It's just get rid of the OH, replace it with Mg, that's it. So you get all these products. चलो इसके ऊपर ना हम थोड़ा और रिविजन कर लेंगे कल, and we'll try and do or probably start past paper question in the next class then, ठीक है? इसके बारे में कोई question नहीं है? Is this clear? Saneem clear है? Nawal, Minahil ठीक है? चलिए, let's continue Monday then. Okay, everyone, take care.